In the vast world of dating, most of us expect to meet interesting people, share a few laughs, and maybe even find love. However, sometimes, things take a turn for the eerie and unexplainable. Do you want to meet some people to date? Or do you take help of online dating apps to find love? Well, think twice before meeting a stranger for dating. Before we get into the eerie stories, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any such stories to share, please share it with us in comments. Countless users share their spine-chilling encounters online involving not just awkward moments, but also life-threatening situations. Here are some of the most bone-chilling date stories that will leave you questioning reality. Online dating has become a staple in the modern quest for love, yet not all dates end in romance. Some encounters turn into terrifying experiences. Here are some chilling stories of dates that turned into nightmares, where the victims narrowly escaped murder or sexual assault. For privacy reasons, let's keep the name and ID of the people anonymous. Story 1. Narrow escape from serial killer. When we are speaking of dating horror, how can we forget Theodore Robert Bundy, commonly known as Ted Bundy, an American serial killer who kidnapped, raped, and murdered dozens of young women? Ted Bundy, one of America's most notorious serial killers, used his charm and so-called good looks to lure victims in the 1970s. While his heinous crimes are well documented, some women who dated him had near-miss encounters. Here are a few chilling stories. In the early 1970s, a student at the University of Washington met a handsome, well-dressed man named Ted at a party. He was charming and friendly, and they talked for hours. She considered going on a date with him, but something felt off and left the date abruptly. Later, while speaking to her brother about the weird date she had, she saw his face on the local news about Ted's inhumane killings and realized she had narrowly escaped becoming one of his victims. Story 2. The nice guy turned predator. I met a guy on a dating app who seemed like a perfect gentleman. We had a great first date at a coffee shop and decided to meet again for dinner. After dinner, he invited me back to his place for a drink. As soon as we got inside, I felt something eerie at his place, and when I noticed his demeanor changed, he became aggressive, trying to force himself on me. I fought back as much as possible, but he overpowered me. But I managed to remember some self-defense moves I was taught by my father when I was young and used that on him, and managed to grab my phone and locked myself in the bathroom. I called the emergency numbers, and the police arrived just in time to save me. He was arrested, and I later found out he had a history of sexual assault. Story 3. The roommate's warning. I met a nice guy at a bar who seemed charming and fun. After speaking to him for some time, he offered to take me to his place. We talked a lot in the cab as I insisted not to drive while intoxicated. We went back to his apartment, and everything seemed fine. He had really expensive furniture, nice posters and art on the wall, and I also happened to notice the other door where his roommate lived. He went out to run some errands. Everything was going until his roommate came home unexpectedly. The roommate immediately pulled me aside and warned me that the guy I was dating had a history of violence against women. I grabbed my things and left as quickly as possible. A few days later, I saw on the news that my date had been arrested for assaulting another woman. I was lucky to have been warned in time. Story 4. The escape from the cabin. I went on a weekend getaway with a girl I had been seeing for a few weeks. She took me to a remote cabin she said she owned in the woods. The first night was fine, but the next day she started behaving erratically, accusing me of things I hadn't done and getting increasingly violent. When she went outside to check something, I locked the door, grabbed my phone, and called a friend who knew our location. My friend contacted the authorities. Meanwhile, she broke back into the cabin and started to throw random things at me. The authorities arrived just in time as she was trying to point a gun at me. She was arrested, and I was mostly unharmed. We friends talk about this to this day and laugh it out, but deep down it haunts me whenever I talk about it. Story 5. The relentless stalker. I met a girl online who seemed nice at first. We went on a few dates, but I had to get back to my work, and as I was lagging in a few work and unintentionally made her ghosted. After a few days, she became possessive and controlling. I was tired of this and broke things off, but she wouldn't leave me alone. He started stalking me everywhere and dropped to such an extent that she created a fake account and added me on all the social media to know where I went and what I did. She even showed up at my work and sent threatening messages endangering me and sometimes even herself. One night, she broke into my apartment with a knife and tried to stab me. I was so fumed up but did not let anger get to me and called the police, who arrived and arrested her and got a restraining order. And later, she was convicted of stalking and attempted assault. Story 6. The Chilling Ride. I met a guy who was a mutual friend and went on a date with him, a gentleman-seeming guy who offered to drive me home afterward. During the drive, he started making inappropriate comments and touching me. I asked him to stop the car, but he refused and locked the doors. As he drove to a secluded area, I managed to grab a pen from my bag and stabbed him in the arm. He screamed and stopped the car, giving me just enough time to unlock the door and run. I found a nearby house where the residents helped me to call the police. He was caught and charged with attempted kidnapping. Story 7. The Vanishing Date. I met a guy named Chris on a dating app, and we decided to meet up at a popular cafe. We were having a great time, chatting about our favorite books and movies, when he excused himself to go to the bathroom. After about 15 minutes, I started to get worried. I asked a waiter to check the bathroom, but they came back and said no one was there. I tried calling and texting Chris, but there was no response. Feeling upset and confused, I left the cafe. When I got home, I decided to do a little social media stalking. I found his Facebook profile, but something was strange. His page hadn't been updated in over 2 years. After some digging, I found an old news article mentioning a man named Chris who went missing around that time. Shaken, I contacted the police and gave them all the information I had. They confirmed that the Chris I met matched the description of the missing person. To this day, I have no idea who or what I met that day, but it left me questioning everything. These stories are just a few examples of the countless eerie encounters shared on the internet. While some may be skeptical, dismissing these incidents, those who experience them are left with lingering fear and unanswered questions. Whether these stories are true or not, they remind us of the thin line between the ordinary and the inexplicable. So next time you swipe right, remember that not everything is as it seems. These brief encounters serve as stark reminders of the dangers lurking behind seemingly friendly faces. People's ability to appear normal while harboring dark intentions is a chilling aspect.